In this video, I'm going to show how to sort questions in the JetNet quiz bank. I've already navigated to the question bank for this JetNet course. As you can see, in this JetNet course, in the default category for this course, which is called Sorting Quiz Questions into Categories, there are 50 questions, as you can see right here. If I look at categories, there's the default with 50, and then you can see these kinds of things are questions that are available to this particular JetNet class that are not in the JetNet class. I want to caution you about how Moodle JetNet does question banks. You can link a question bank from another source. It can be tricky when you do that because sometimes the linkage fails. And then when you copy or import the course, you no longer have test questions for a quiz. So be very careful about that. Try to keep all of your questions within your own course shell. And you start here with this default. That is the root category for all questions in your JetNet class. Now, while I'm in my categories, I can come down here and I can add a category. I want to add that parent. I want to add that to the default, which is called the parent. The parent is the category under which you're creating a new category. So I'm going to make sure I'm selecting my default category as the parent. That way I make sure that it stays within my JetNet class. Now I give this a name. I'm just going to call this Chapter 15. If I want, I can apply information, and when I'm done, I click Add Category. So now when I come into my categories, I now have my default, and then underneath my default I have my Chapter 15. If I go to Chapter 15, you can see there are 0 questions here. Now I could import questions directly into this category now if I wanted to, but more often when you go to your questions and you go to your default category, you're going to find a number of questions there. It's very easy to sort now that I've created the child category. All I need to do, if I want to collect all of them, I click right there. You see that puts a check mark in all of the boxes. But what I'll do is I'll typically choose just the questions that I want or need in that category. There. Slide all the way to the bottom. Change my category to my Chapter 15. So right here, I've selected some. Now I've designated the target. Now I click this Move To. So now, if I go into my questions and my categories, I have my default. Now only has 44 questions. Before it had 50. And now my Chapter 15 has 6 questions because I just took 6 questions from the default and added them here. All I need to do now is repeat this over and over again to sort my questions into categories. Again, a caution on how JetNet does questions. Be very cautious about using any of the questions or putting any questions into these other categories. Those are categories that are not within your JetNet class. Those are actually in the overall JetNet structure. You want to make sure that you keep your questions in your default for, and whatever the name of your class is will be right there. The name of this class is Sorting Quiz Questions into Categories. So that's my default. That's my root category here. I always want to make sure that when I'm creating categories, I want to put them in this area rather than in any other area. To do that again, I go to Categories, and then I select where I want it to be, right here, default. I don't want to put it under Chapter 15. I want to put it under default for sorting quiz questions into categories. Here I can do Chapter 12, for example. Add category. And now you can see my default for sorting quiz questions now has 2 categories. Chapter 12, 0 questions. Chapter 15, 6 questions. And yes, you could, if you notice, delete categories. You can manage that. You can move to the top level. You can move down. So you have those options that you can use. But again, keep them in the default. Hopefully this has given you enough information to get started to sort your own questions into their own categories within your JetNet class.